welcome to today's review. We're going to be looking at this DCC Sound enabled locomotive from Bachmann. It's a Class 66 locomotive in the EWS livery, in a pristine livery. It's the 32733DS, so it's got the DCC Sound on board, as we have here, and locomotive number 66040. I did own the Class 66 from Bachmann, a couple of these locomotives in the past, and unfortunately one of those did suffer from a problem, I think, which was common with a certain generation of Class 66s, Bachmann Class 66s, was that of derailment on a Pico express point, and with any sort of speed, and even at low speed sometimes it would derail. And unfortunately my layout has quite a few of those, so it just rendered the locomotive totally useless to me. It did work fine over the standard sort of Hornby points, the radius 2 curve type points, but really it didn't work for me, and I know this was a common problem, so this kind of put me off the class for a little while, so I've stayed away from it. But I have come back to it recently, and this is one of the models I have purchased, so I'm kind of quite keen. I do like the livery here, and I'm quite keen to see how she performs now, and I will be watching out for the performance over the express points, just to make sure that problem's gone away. It was quite a disappointing issue, because the locomotive I had was a very nice one at the time, very nice livery, and unfortunately it just didn't perform over the express points. So that aside, that's a previous problem. Hopefully that's been resolved, and we shall hopefully see that when we do this, run this out on the layout later on in this review. Okay, let's continue on here, and we'll open the box, and we'll take another closer look at this. This one does have the DCC Sound pre-fitted, so we get this single A4 sheet which talks about the features of the sound decoder, and it gives you the actual function list here. Now it's a pretty small function list. If you can see it, it goes up to F12, but really not a lot of options. This is a locomotive that's intended for I suppose more industrial type applications. It wouldn't be carrying passengers typically, so you're not getting the kind of additional maybe sounds that you would get on a passenger locomotive. So a little bit limited, but at least it's a clear readout of the functions, whether they're latched or triggered, etc. So that's on there. It gives a couple of little guidelines, I suppose, here, and then really it directs you in terms of the CV programming to the website, and I suppose that's again isn't very helpful, not having that directly, and it isn't even a direct link. It just sends you to the Bachmann CO website. So if you want to do real customization on the DCC side, you're going to have to do a little bit more digging in terms of the actual decoder and what you need to do there, which is unfortunate. It's a pity. They could have included more. Hornby do now for their TTS, so I think Bachmann, it wouldn't do any harm to have a couple of additional sheets that give you the main CVs to allow you to do that, some customization. But that's the main point there. So let's take a look at the locomotive itself. I think this is a good looking locomotive. If you like the EWS livery in general, then this should appeal to you. It aligns with the sort of detail you'd expect and the sort of weight you'd expect from a Bachmann locomotive. So nothing out of the ordinary here. The spring buffers as normal. This is the front here, so you've got a driver pre-installed, which is nice. Some nice handrails there. Nice glazing on the windows. You've got wipers. You've got the lighting, the front and rear lighting, as well as the coach lighting, or the cab lighting, if I call it that. A good level of detail on the bogies, and you can see the kind of piping detail in there, the kind of conduit bringing the various cables through to the back end of the locomotive. And so overall, a nice level of detail, a nice grille effect here, which you can see right through, and you can see levels of detail underneath that, so that's always good. And again, some additional pieces here, so rather than just having molded pieces, having actual add-on pieces to give you an extra level of detail. So it is a nice detailed locomotive. I do like the look of it. It may be something that some people may like to look at a bit of weathering, and I will put some photographs of a weathered version of this locomotive. I'll put them on the in the video. I'll include a couple of those so that you can get a look at them. It does weather reasonably well, and I think it looks nice and when it is weathered. So that's an option you might like to consider. But overall, it's a good looking locomotive, a nice bit of weight in it. Let's see, this has got DCC pre-installed, so we'll be able to run it from the get-go. We don't need to do any installation there, which is good. So I think the next thing to do here is to get this guy out onto the layout and start seeing how he performs. Okay, we'll see you in a minute. Okay, we've got the lights on and we're ready to start up the engine here. It's got the distinctive startup of the Class 66. It's a pretty impressive startup, so we're going to rev up the engines here and we'll get underway. I think a very good start. We're running with these steel carriers. This is the rolling stock we're running with today. These are Bachmann steel carriers. I'll put a reference in the description to them. These are the weathered versions of them. You can also get them in the pristine livery, and but these are in the weathered livery. So these are EWS as well, so appropriate for this locomotive. And they actually come with either the KD couplers or the standard couplers. So I've got a mix actually here on this particular rake. I quite like the effect of the weathered version. So very smooth performing so far. And overall, I found this locomotive to be a good performer, as you would kind of expect, I suppose, for a locomotive of this class from Bachmann. It has got the smooth running. It doesn't need a lot of running in actually to get it into shape. Now I did mention I had previous problems with the Class 66 over the Pico Express points. We're just going over one of those now. It plagued, I think, a certain generation of Class 66s from Bachmann. And really very little you can do about it if you've got the problem. I know all sorts of people tried all sorts of modifications, but I think you're only hiding to nothing with that, to be honest. I think you just need to move on. So I did rack up the speed a little bit on this. You can just see the express point there now that it's going over. So his predecessors would have given a derailment there. But this is good. I mean, that's a few years ago now, and I think all of the current versions and the last couple of generations of Class 66s from Bachmann haven't had that problem. And overall, this was a very smooth runner. Didn't give me any problems at all. Default speed settings don't go that high actually. Probably keeping it reasonably prototypical for a locomotive like this. Okay, so we're just going to bring it to an end. There is a full running session. It's about 10 minutes long. I'll put a link in the description to that if you want to get a longer view of this, and you get some different views of it running. But we'll just bring this session to a close. It's hopefully giving you a feel for what this locomotive sounds like and looks like and performs. And we'll just wind down the engine now, and we'll wrap up this part of the review for today. Okay, so hopefully you found that informative. Okay, we're going to take a look at a summary for this particular locomotive. We're talking about the Bachmann 32733DS. It's a Class 66 in the EWS livery, and this is in the pristine livery. It's got factory installed 21-pin DCC Sound, and it has some extra features in terms of the lighting. It's got full directional lighting and also cab lighting, and it's got spring buffers and a driver. It's one of the more modern eras, so era 9 and 10, so really coming up to the current day. You'll see these in service. The retail price for this varies between around 189 to 239 sterling, and some of the vendors do have it on offer at the lower end of that scale, and I think at that sort of price range I think it's pretty good value for a locomotive of this caliber with DCC Sound. So worth shopping around on this. As I said, some of the vendors are selling this at the lower end of the scale here, so well worth taking a look at that if you can get it for that price. Okay, on the scoring front, I think in general the scores are all very strong for this locomotive in terms of performance, appearance, the sound. Just a little bit limited in terms of the number of sounds, but that comes by really a little bit from the application of this particular locomotive, which does limit it a bit. Some good extra features, as I said, in terms of it's got good lighting, and it's got the driver and the spring buffers. Overall packaging and documentation is pretty good, just a little bit limited on the sound documentation. I think we could get a little bit more for a locomotive costing 200 sterling. It wouldn't harm to have a couple of extra A4 sheets there, but overall a very strong score. And my final comments is that, this is a high quality locomotive, very smooth runner. It's a good looking locomotive, and obviously if you have a particular preference for the EWS livery, this is probably a must-own for you. Doesn't have the previous problems the older generations of 66 had over the Pico Express points, and overall a recommended locomotive. I do like it, and I would have to recommend it. As I said, if you are an EWS fan, it is probably a must-own. Please give a thumbs up if you found this review useful for you. I'll be doing lots more reviews in the future, so if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, that'd be great, and I'd hopefully see you on one of these reviews in the near future. So thanks for watching today, and happy modelling.